For most people, a quiet life inside a convent feels peaceful, almost calm like an early morning breeze. But for one elderly nun, that same silence carried a kind of weight she had learned to hide for many years. Her name was Sister Helena, a gentle woman with gray hair tied neatly behind her head, soft eyes that always carried kindness, and a smile that made even the saddest person feel safe. Everyone admired her for her patience, her helpful nature, and the way she always made time to listen. But nobody knew that behind her peaceful smile lived a story she had kept locked inside her heart for a very long time. Many years ago, long before her hair turned white, Helena had a different life. As a young girl, she loved music in a way most people love breathing. She didn't just play the piano. She lived it. The moment her fingers touched the keys, she felt like the world around her faded, and only the melody mattered. People used to gather around her tiny home just to hear her practice. Her father would proudly say, "She was born for this." But life doesn't always follow the dreams we imagine. Her family faced many hardships, and as the eldest child, she took on responsibility early. Gradually, music slipped into the background as she focused on helping those around her. Later, she chose to join the convent because she believed that serving people was her true calling. She was right, but a part of her heart never forgot the piano. When Helena first entered the convent, she was surprised to find an old piano sitting in the main hall. It felt like a sign, a small reminder from her childhood. At first, she played softly after evening prayers. Her music would drift through the corridors, calming everyone who heard it. The younger girls loved sitting near the door just to listen. But one day, everything changed. Under the convent's former leadership, strict discipline was considered the highest value. The older head sister believed that too much music could distract the community from their spiritual routines. She felt that playing the piano made the environment too lively. One afternoon, the head sister approached Helena and quietly told her that the piano would no longer be used. She said it politely, but the decision was final. The piano was locked, the key taken away, and the hall returned to its old silence. Helena simply nodded and accepted the decision. She never complained, not once. But that night, when she sat alone in her room, she couldn't stop thinking about how music had once been her voice in the world. Now that voice was gone again. She told herself that sacrifice was a part of her duty, and slowly, she learned to live without the sound of piano keys beneath her fingers. Months turned into years, and years turned into decades. During all that time, Helena kept serving everyone with the same love she had always given. She cooked meals for the poor, took care of the sick, taught children who came to the convent school, and spent hours comforting people who needed someone to talk to. Everyone respected her deeply, but no one knew the small ache she carried inside. Her life became routine, but not unhappy. She found joy in helping others, yet there was always a soft, quiet part of her heart that she never shared with anyone. Sometimes, when she heard faint music from a passing car or from the church radio, she would stop for a moment. Her eyes would soften, as if she was remembering something precious. But those moments came and went quickly. She never let anyone see the sadness behind them. Everything remained the same until one special day when a new head sister joined the convent. She was younger, open-minded, and believed strongly that expression and creativity could bring healing, not distraction. From the moment she arrived, the atmosphere began to shift gently. She encouraged everyone to use their talents, whether it was art, writing, teaching, or music. One afternoon, while the new leader and a few nuns were cleaning old storage rooms, they discovered something surprising. A wooden cloth was pulled off a large object, and there it was, the old piano, covered in dust, untouched for years. The new leader seemed shocked. She asked, "Does anyone here play?" The room went silent, but one of the nuns glanced at Helena and said softly, "I think she used to, but she never talks about it." Helena froze for a moment. She hadn't expected anyone to remember. Her heart began beating faster, and a strange mixture of fear and hope rose inside her. She stepped forward and said quietly, "I used to play, but it has been a very long time." Her voice trembled a little, as if admitting this was somehow difficult. The young head sister smiled warmly. "Would you like to try? Even just a little?" Only if you want to. She wasn't forcing her. She was inviting her. That gentle tone was enough to make Helena hesitate. She looked at the piano, her eyes softening as memories rushed back. For a moment she felt like the young girl she used to be, sitting at her family's piano with dreams bigger than the room around her, but doubt crept in. What if she had forgotten how to play? What if she embarrassed herself? What if her hands weren't strong enough anymore? She whispered, "I don't know if I can. It's been too long." But the new leader simply said, "Your heart will remember." Those words stayed with Helena the entire night. She lay awake thinking about the piano, thinking about the sound of keys, thinking about how music once filled her life. She wondered whether she still carried that gift or whether time had taken it away forever. The next morning, the piano was moved into the main hall again, cleaned and tuned as best as possible. The younger nuns were excited, not because they expected a performance, but because they felt something important was happening. Even they weren't sure what it was, only that Helena was at the center of it. Helena didn't rush. She took her time. The moment she stood in front of the piano again, her hands shook slightly. It wasn't fear. It was emotion, the kind that comes when something forgotten suddenly returns. She touched the wooden edge gently, feeling the cool surface under her fingertips. It felt familiar, yet distant, like holding an old letter you once cherished. She slowly sat down on the bench. The room grew quiet. Not a single person whispered. Everyone respected her space, her moment. She could hear her heartbeat, loud and steady. She placed her hands on her lap for a moment, then lifted them carefully to the keys. The first touch felt electric. She pressed one key lightly. It made a soft sound, almost uncertain but full of feeling. The sound echoed gently around the hall, and Helena closed her eyes. She pressed another key, then another. Suddenly she felt something she hadn't felt in decades, a small spark inside her chest. Warm and familiar, her fingers moved slowly, searching, remembering. Her first notes were shaky, but with every second, her confidence grew a little. The young nuns had tears in their eyes already, and they weren't even hearing a full melody yet. They were witnessing a moment that felt bigger than music. They were seeing a woman reclaim a part of herself she had once lost. Helena took a deep breath. And then, without thinking, without planning, her hands began to move in a gentle rhythm she knew by heart. A simple old tune she had played as a child began to flow from the piano, soft at first, then clearer, stronger, warmer. The sound filled the hall like sunlight entering a dark room after many years. Everyone watched quietly, but their hearts felt full. They weren't listening to just music, they were listening to the return of someone's forgotten dream. For Helena, it felt as if the years melted away. She wasn't old in that moment. She wasn't tired or worn out. She felt alive, whole, connected to something deep inside her soul that she had pushed aside for far too long. When the final note faded into the air, Helena's hand slowly rested on her lap. She breathed out shakily, realizing her eyes were full of tears. She hadn't expected the music to come back so easily, so beautifully. She looked up, and everyone around her smiled warmly, silently supporting her, and that was only the beginning of what would become a moment that would touch not just the convent, but the entire world. When the last soft note of the piano faded into silence, the entire hall stayed still for a few moments. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. It felt like everyone needed time to breathe again, as if something incredibly precious had just happened right in front of them. Sister Helena sat quietly, her hands trembling slightly on her lap, her eyes glistening with tears she didn't try to hide. She wasn't embarrassed. She wasn't worried about what anyone thought. She was just overwhelmed by the feeling she thought she would never experience again. The young nuns standing around the hall had tears in their eyes too. Some covered their mouths in surprise, some wiped their cheeks softly, and some simply stared at Helena with the kind of admiration you give to someone who just shared a part of their soul. No one expected that level of emotion from a simple piano melody. But it wasn't just music they heard. It was her story, her years of silence, her hidden dreams, her journey of sacrifice. All of it was woven into the melody she had just played. Helena took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, but her heart kept beating fast. She finally looked up at the group, and a faint smile appeared on her face. She whispered softly, "I didn't think my fingers would remember." The new head sister stepped forward, her eyes warm and gentle. "They never forgot," she replied. "They were just waiting for the right moment." The younger sisters gathered around Helena, softly placing their hands on her shoulders, celebrating her moment without overwhelming her. One of them whispered, "We never knew you could play like that." Helena smiled again, this time more confidently. "I used to play a long time ago," she said, her voice soft but steady. "Life took me on a different path, and I thought this part of me was gone forever. But the truth was, it had never been gone, just buried. And now it was awake again." As everyone started talking gently, sharing their reactions, a visitor who had been cleaning the guest hall entered the room. She had recorded the entire moment on her phone, thinking it was something special. She approached the group nervously and said, I hope nobody minds. I filmed the performance. It was too beautiful not to capture." The head sister didn't scold her. She understood why someone would want to save a moment like that. It wasn't just a performance, it was a piece of someone's heart coming back to life. She asked Helena softly, "Do you allow us to share this? People outside should hear it too." Helena hesitated for a moment. She wasn't someone who liked attention. She had lived her whole life quietly, serving others from the background without ever seeking praise. But then she remembered how music had always been something meant to be shared. It wasn't about fame. It was about touching hearts. She nodded slowly. "If it brings joy to others, then yes." The video was posted online that same day. No one expected what happened next. Within hours, it started gaining views. Within a day, thousands of people watched it. Then millions. People from around the world left comments saying how the music touched them, how they cried without even knowing why, how her performance felt like a reminder that hidden dreams never die completely. Even people who had never heard of the convent before were calling her the nun with the golden hands and the woman who played from the heart. The convent received messages from different countries, and news channels reached out asking to know more about her. But Helena didn't care about the attention. What mattered to her was something much simpler. The piano wasn't silent anymore. The hall that had once felt cold and empty now felt alive every evening. Helena started practicing again, slowly rebuilding her confidence. The younger sisters often sat around her, listening softly, appreciating the beauty of every note. And something interesting happened. Children from the nearby village heard about Helena's story and began visiting the convent. Some came because they wanted to hear her play. Others came because they dreamt of learning music but didn't have anyone to teach them. At first, Helena didn't know if she could handle the responsibility. She was older now, and teaching children required patience and energy. But when the first little girl sat beside her, holding the piano keys with tiny nervous fingers, Helena felt something warm light up in her chest. It reminded her of her younger self, full of hope and simplicity. She began teaching the children gently, showing them how to place their hands, how to breathe before a note, how to feel the music instead of just playing it. She wasn't strict or formal. She taught them the way she wished she had been taught, through emotion, softness, and honesty. Week by week, more children came. Some were shy, some bold, some full of energy, some very quiet. But they all loved the moments they spent with Helena at the piano. And she loved them too. Teaching gave her a purpose she didn't expect to find so late in life. One day, after finishing a lesson, the young head sister approached her. "You've created something beautiful here," she said gently. Helena shook her head. No, the beauty was already there. The piano just needed someone to bring it out again. The head sister smiled. "Then you were the one it was waiting for." Months passed, and Helena's story continued to spread. She received letters from people she had never met telling her how her music helped them through difficult times. Some said they found hope again because of her performance. Others said they finally returned to their own forgotten passions after watching her. One letter stood out more than the rest. It came from an elderly woman who wrote, "Your music reached me on a day I felt life had nothing left for me. When I saw you play after so many years, I realized it is never too late to return to the things we love. Thank you for reminding me." Helena read that letter many times. Each time, it made her eyes fill with tears. She never imagined her small moment of courage would change someone else's life. But it did. And that thought alone was enough to make her heart feel full. The piano hall became a place of connection for the whole village. People of all ages came to listen. The convent that had once been known only for silence was now known for music, warmth, and healing. And Helena, who once believed her gift had faded, became a source of inspiration for everyone around her. There were still days when her hands shook. Days when she doubted her strength. Days when she worried she had lost her touch. But each time she sat at the piano, the keys welcomed her like an old friend. And each time children laughed or clapped or played their first tune, she felt younger than her years. One particular evening, as the sun was setting and the golden light filled the hall, Helena sat alone at the piano. She played a soft melody, something gentle and peaceful. As she played, she realized something she had never said out loud. She didn't regret the years she spent in silence. Those years shaped her. Those years taught her patience, strength, and humility. But she also realized something else. Dreams don't disappear just because life becomes difficult. They wait quietly, like seeds under the soil. And when the right moment arrives, they bloom again. When she finished, she closed the piano slowly and whispered to herself, "Thank you for giving this back to me." The story of the elderly nun who found her voice again didn't end with one viral video. It continued every day in the laughter of children learning music, in the smiles of visitors who came to listen, in the hearts of people who remembered her story. Whenever they felt life was passing them by, her comeback wasn't just about music. It was about hope. It was about discovering that no matter how many years go by, it's never too late to return to something you love, something that belongs to you, something that makes your soul feel alive. And that is how Sister Helena, who once lived in silence, became a quiet miracle for the world, proving that a dream paused is not a dream lost, and that a single melody played with a full heart can touch millions without ever needing a single word.